Chapter 24 of On the Duties of the Clergy, Book the First. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. On the Duties of the Clergy by Saint Ambrose. Book the First, Chapter 24. There are three things to be noticed in the actions of our life. First, our passions are to be controlled by our reason. Next, we ought to observe a suitable moderation in our desires. And lastly, everything ought to be done at the right time and in the proper order. All these qualities shone forth so conspicuously in the holy men of Old Testament time that it is evident they were well furnished with what men call the cardinal virtues. I think I have said enough on the art of speaking. Let us now consider what beseems an active life. We note that there are three things to be regarded in connection with this subject. One is, that passion should not resist our reason. In that way only can our duties be brought into line with what is seemly. For if passion yields to reason, we can easily maintain what is seemly in our duties. Next, we must take care lest, either by showing greater zeal or less than the matter we take up demands, we look as though we were taking up a small matter with great parade, or were treating a great matter with but little care. Thirdly, as regards moderation in our endeavours and works, and also with regard to order in doing things, and in the right timing of things, I think that everything should be open and straightforward. But first comes that which I may call the foundation of all, namely, that our passions should obey our reason. The second and third are really the same, moderation in either case. There is room with us for the survey of a pleasing form, which is accounted beauty, and the consideration of dignity. Next follows the consideration of the order and the timing of things. These, then, are the 3 points, and we must see whether we can show them in perfection in any one of the saints. First, there is our father Abraham, who was formed and called for the instruction of generations to come. When bidden to go forth from his own country and kindred, and from his father's house, though bound and held back by many ties of relationship, did he not give proof that in him passion was subject to reason? Who does not delight in the sweet charms of his native land, his kindred, and his own home? Their sweetness then delighted him. But the thought of the heavenly command and of an eternal reward influenced him more. Did he not reflect that he could not take his wife with him without the greatest danger, unused as she was to hardships, and so tender to bear insults, and so beautiful as to be likely to arouse the lust of profligate men? Yet he decided somewhat deliberately to undergo all this rather than to escape it by making excuses. Lastly, when he had gone into Egypt, he advised her to say she was his sister, not his wife. See here what passions are at work. He feared for the chastity of his wife. He feared for his own safety. He had his suspicions about the lust of the Egyptians, and yet the reasonableness of performing his duty to God prevailed with him. For he thought that by the favour of God he could be safe everywhere, but if he offended the Lord, he could not abide unharmed even at home. Thus reason conquered passion, and brought it into subjection to itself. When his nephew was taken captive, without being terrified or dismayed at the hordes of so many kings, he resumed the war. And after the victory was gained, he refused his share of the spoil, which he himself had really won. Also, when a son was promised to him, though he thought of the lost vigour of his body, now as good as dead, and the barrenness of his wife, and his own great age, he believed God, though it was against the law of nature. Note how everything meets together here. Passion was not wanting, but it was checked. Here was a mind equable in action, which neither treated great things as unimportant or little things as great. Here there was moderation in different affairs, order in things, fitness of occasion, due measure in words. He was foremost in faith, conspicuous in virtue, vigorous in battle, in victory not greedy, at home hospitable, and to his wife attentive. Jacob also, his holy grandson, loved to pass his time at home free from danger, but his mother wished him to live in foreign parts, and so give place to his brother's anger. Sound counsels prevailed over natural feelings. An exile from home, banished from his parents, yet everywhere, in all he did he observed due measure, such as was fitting, and made use of his opportunities at the right time. So dear was he to his parents at home, that the one, moved by the promptness of his compliance, gave him his blessing, the other inclined towards him with tender love. In the judgment of his brother also he was placed first, when he thought that he ought to give up his food to his brother. For though according to his natural inclinations he wished for food, yet when asked for it he gave it up from a feeling of affection. He was a faithful shepherd of the flock for his master, an attentive son-in-law to his father-in-law. He was active in work, sparing in his meals, conspicuous in making amends, lavish in repaying. Nay, so well did he calm his brother's anger that he received his favour, though he had feared his enmity. What shall I say of Joseph? He certainly had a longing for freedom, and yet endured the bonds of servitude. How meek he was in slavery, how unchanging in virtue, how kindly in prison. Wise, too, in interpreting, and self-restrained in exercising his power. In the time of plenty was he not careful? In the time of famine was he not fair? Did he not praise worthily to everything in order, and use opportunities at their season, giving justice to his people by the restraining guidance of his office? Job also, both in prosperity and adversity, was blameless, patient, pleasing, and acceptable to God. He was harassed with pain, yet could find consolation. David also was brave in war, patient in time of adversity, peaceful at Jerusalem, in the hour of victory merciful, on committing sin repentant, in his old age foreseeing. He preserved due measure in his actions, and took his opportunities as they came. He has set them down in the songs of succeeding years, and so it seems to me that he has by his life no less than by the sweetness of his hymns poured forth an undying song of his own merits to God. What duty connected with the chief virtues was wanting in these men? In the first place, they showed prudence, which is exercised in the search of the truth, and which imparts a desire for full knowledge. Next, justice, which assigns each man his own, does not claim on others, and disregards its own advantage, so as to guard the rights of all. Thirdly, fortitude, which both in warfare and at home is conspicuous in greatness of mind, and distinguishes itself in the strength of the body. Fourthly, temperance, which preserves the right method and order in all things that we think should either be done or said. End of chapter 24, Book the First.